So keyword research is the process of using specific tools to learn insights about what words and phrases our ideal clients are using to find us. We can't do SEO well if we don't understand the words and phrases that our ideal clients are using to try to find us. So keyword research is at the foundation of everything we do for our SEO strategy.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 378 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and glad you found us. Glad you've stumbled upon us. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So I'm looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Natalie Moore. And one of the things about this particular interview was Natalie did such a brilliant job of explaining SEO, search engine optimization, in a way that was just totally understandable. And we also just dove in a lot into some strategies about helping people find you and being able to, in particular your website, but just being able to connect with you as a therapist and being able to build your practice and get more clients into your practice. And that's a topic that comes up a lot for people, particularly in my mastermind group, the Practice of Therapy Collaborative. So yeah, it's a good episode, and I was really grateful for Natalie talking to us. And I'll mention here on the front end, Natalie has got a course that she's offering on this topic, and you can get to that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/SEO roadmap, and she'll talk a little bit more about that in this particular episode. And before I get to my conversation with Natalie, another resource I'd like for you to learn about is Fully Booked Pros. And if you'll go back to episode number 331, you'll be able to hear my conversation with Mike from Fully Booked Pros and how he founded that company. But they are experts in helping clinicians develop Google Ads for their practice. And if you are a practice that's cash-based, one of the things which this ties back into a conversation with Natalie here is getting people to your website. And one other way besides SEO, which SEO should be your priority, but Google Ads can help people find your website. And it's another step you can take in getting people to your website. But if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/FBP, you can find out more about that. So be sure and check that out. And also be sure to check out mentalhealthwaretn.com, my friend Ashley's store. We've got lots of new designs that she's constantly putting up there, and love for you to visit that and help her out with this project that we've been working on for several months now. So go over to mentalhealthwaretn.com and find some really cool swag to represent you and to promote advocacy in mental wellness and addiction recovery. And also, real quickly, before we get to my conversation with Natalie, I'd love for you to find out more about TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. and also hear from one of the members of the Sightcraft Network.
Hi there, I'm Julie Harris. I'm an accountant and I'm the host of the Therapy for Your Money podcast. In the podcast, we talk about all things money and finance, specifically for therapists in private practice. You see, my accounting firm, Green Oak Accounting, specializes in working with therapists in private practice. That's all we do at this point. And over the years, we've learned so many tips and tricks for how to make the financial side of private practice work better. After all, we've seen under the hood of hundreds and hundreds of private practices. So in the podcast, I share lots of financial tools and tips and mindset shifts to help you have a profitable private practice. Therapy for Your Money is part of the Sightcraft network of podcasts, a network of independent podcasters just like me. So head over to therapyforyourmoney.com to hear episodes on topics like growing your practice, making more money without necessarily working harder, weathering the ups and downs of a practice, and so much more. Come join me at therapyforyourmoney.com.
Ready to upgrade your practice from a rusty bicycle to a shiny new sports car? Buckle up, because TherapyNotes is here to turbocharge your journey. It's the comprehensive practice management system you've been craving, equipped with everything you need to navigate patient records, schedule seamlessly, host remote sessions, craft detailed notes, and tackle insurance billing with ease. And guess what? It's your trusty sidekick, available whenever and wherever duty calls. Picture having more quality time with your clients, all thanks to this digital assistant that never clocks out. Here's the kicker. It's Gordon approved, so you can trust it's the real deal. Bid farewell to paperwork headaches and embrace a new era of efficiency and top-tier care. Ready to level up your private practice game? Swing by practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and punch in promo code GORDON for 2 months on the house. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really happy for you to get to know today Natalie Moore. Welcome, Natalie. Glad you're here.
So excited to be talking with you today, Gordon.
Yes, and Natalie's based in where in California are you?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, that's right. I just, I talked to so many people from all across, from everywhere. So, and Natalie, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Happy to. So my private practice journey actually started as a pre-licensed therapist, as an associate or intern, as we called ourselves back then. I knew that I wanted to eventually be in private practice because it was going to give me the flexibility to have work-life balance and also to be able to work with my ideal clients with the ideal modalities that I wanted to work in. So I found an amazing supervisor who could mentor me. The catch was I had to find all my own clients. And I was in my mid-20s. I pretty much was trying to figure out life at that point. And then I also had to figure out how the heck do you get private practice clients as a therapist, right? So what do? You go to Google and you ask, how do I find therapy clients? I actually remember the moment that happened. I was at a laundromat doing my laundry because I didn't have washer dryer in unit at the time. And I typed into Google search, how do I find therapy clients? And I don't know if you remember Zini-Me. This was,
Yeah, know them well. Yeah,
Zini-Me.
Yeah.
They're great. And I found some of their blog posts and I just started devouring all of their information, just started reading every post. And I learned so much. And I was just telling you before we hit record, Gordon, that I'm the kind of person who says yes and then figures it out later. It was the same thing with private practice. I said yes to private practice knowing that if it was meant to be and if it was important to me, I was going to figure out how to do it. So I just started putting into practice the things that were recommended, marketing, best practices. And I started to find that clients were actually finding me through my website. And they were giving me feedback about why they picked me on my website. They said things like, I really liked your holistic approach, or you seemed down to earth, or I liked the way I felt when I was on your website. I felt comfortable. And so I started to lean into that a little bit more and just did a little more, a little more, a little more. And I ended up developing a website that really spoke to my ideal client. And I built my dream practice that way. I see mostly women in their 20s and 30s who struggle with, I like to call the P's: people pleasing, perfectionism, pressure to perform, and pretending like everything's okay all the time.
Right.
I love working with these women. I love helping them transform their lives, helping them live authentically, build boundaries. And what ended up happening, Gordon, is that other therapists saw what I was doing and they started to ask me, Natalie, how are you doing this? How are you building a practice as an associate, right? How are you getting your ideal clients? How are you charging premium rates? And so I started telling them, oh, it's my website. Oh, it's SEO. Oh, you got to learn about keywords. Oh, you got to learn about backlinks. And they're like, what is this? What is that? And I just love helping people. So I was teaching them how to do their SEO, teaching them how to write specialty pages, teaching them how to do backlink outreach. And then I realized, I was like, wait a second, I could actually turn this into a course. So that's exactly what I did. I actually had a client cancel and I had an hour free, and I sat down and the curriculum just fell onto the page. And so not only do I see clients in private practice as a therapist, but I also help other therapists build their dream practices too.
Yes. Oh, that's great. I think that's a theme that I hear a lot with the people that I work with in doing consulting and helping them in their practices, is just really understanding, okay, the number one of the biggest struggles that people have, well, it's really two struggles. One is they don't have enough clients, particularly if they're just starting out and really having a lot of anxiety around, okay, I've got to get more referrals, I've got to get more people in. Or they're at that place where they are totally full and they've got too many clients, and what are they going to do with all of that? But I think you hit on something, and I'm looking forward to our conversation about, SEO and what are just some of the basics around that for people to understand. Like you said, people found your website and it resonated with them. So what would you say were the elements of that you learned about that attracted people to your practice?
Such a great question. And let's first just define what SEO is, because it is a technical term and a lot of people don't know what that means. So let me just start with a definition. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. When we're talking about search engines, we're mostly talking about Google because they have over 90% of market share. So really, we're talking about Google. And optimization is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you make something as good and as efficient as possible. So when you optimize your website for search engines, what that means is you're explicitly telling Google what your website is about, so that Google has as much information as possible to rank you on their first page for as many key phrases as possible that are relevant to you and your practice. So for example, trauma therapist, California. If you are a trauma therapist and you are in California, you want to be gearing your website towards key phrases like trauma therapist, California. Now, you don't want to be showing up as eating disorder therapist, Tennessee, if you're not an eating disorder therapist, Tennessee. So our key phrases have to match not only what our specialties are, what our location is, but it also has to do this magical matching up with the words and phrases that our prospective clients or ideal clients are typing into Google to try to find us. So keyword research is the process of using specific tools to learn insights about what words and phrases our ideal clients are using to find us. We can't do SEO well if we don't understand the words and phrases that our ideal clients are using to try to find us. So keyword research is at the foundation of everything we do for our SEO strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I think one thing that a lot of people, when they, like your own story about going into private practice and figuring it out as you went, I like to call it building the airplane as you fly it. So, I mean, it's just, you learn a lot doing that. And that was my process as well. I mean, it was just learned it along the way. But one of the things is that you can't just start a practice and just the whole Field of Dreams thing, build it and they will come. Well, no, you've got to build it, then tell them about it, and then they will come. And you bring up a very good point about how are people searching for you? How are they going to find you? And that's a good, one of the best ways I've found of doing that is just when you get a client, okay, tell me how you found me, and what did you type in to find me?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. What I find is most therapists do not actually track where their referrals come from, which is a huge missed opportunity. If you don't know where your referrals are coming from, then you can't double down on the efforts that are working, and then you can't prune back the efforts that are a waste of time and energy. So one mistake that I see therapists make with this a lot is where they'll have a Psychology Today profile. Having a Psychology Today profile is a great strategy from a marketing perspective because it does bring in referrals. However, I see it misused where they treat the Psychology Today profile almost as like a fill-in website. And then they use that link and they post it everywhere. They post it, to Facebook groups in response to referral requests. They post it maybe in a newsletter. They post it in response for if somebody says, hey, I really want to refer clients to you. What's your website? Here's the link to my Psychology Today. The problem with that is then once those people get client referrals through that link, they think Psychology Today is sending them all of those clients. But Psychology Today, we don't know how many are coming from Psychology Today. We don't know how many are coming from Facebook or from word of mouth. Now, if we can ferret those things out, then you really know, okay, is this Psychology Today profile worth spending $30 a month on? How many referrals is it sending me? Is it worth responding to referral requests in Facebook groups? Are people sending me clients that way? How is my word of mouth growing over time, right? If you use your Psychology Today profile like a website and you post it everywhere, you don't know where your referrals are coming from. So your suggestion is really smart. If a client comes to you and you don't actually know what avenue they found you, you've got to ask. Now, even if they fill out your contact form on your website, you might think, oh, they found me through my website. You don't know that. They might have landed on your website as the last place before contacting you. Maybe their doctor told them about you and then they checked you out on your website. Maybe they found your Instagram profile, went to the link in your bio, and then went to your website, right? We need to know where our client referrals are coming from, again, so that we can put more time and energy into the ones that are working and then take time and energy away from the ones that aren't.
Right. Yes. So with the SEO, in addition to kind of figuring out which keywords people are using to search with, what are some other steps that they should be taking with their website?
Let me see if we can take this in another direction, because I think the question that someone might have next, once they hear me talk about keyword research is, well, how do I do that? How do I know what words and phrases people are using to find me? Because it's a highly technical process to do this keyword research. And the way that I describe keyword research is it's kind of like playing darts. Imagine if you had a dartboard and you were trying to hit the dartboard and your eyes were closed and you're just throwing darts hoping that you land one, right? That's kind of like not doing your keyword research. That's just throwing words all over your website hoping that somebody finds you. Whereas doing keyword research is like having your eyes wide open and you're trying to hit that dartboard right in that center bullseye. So in order to do this, you have to use keyword research tools. And I've tried pretty much all of them, all of the popular ones on the market. And I've found that the best one for therapists specifically, the one that I like the best, is called Mangools. It's got a funny name. We'll include the link in the show notes for people. Funny name, but it works really well. One of the reasons why it works so well for therapists is because our licenses are state bound, right? There is a perimeter to where we can work. Even if people are licensed in multiple states or have one of these PSI-packed agreements, they're still geographically bound and limited in some way, right? And so what Mangools allows you to do in their keyword research, which other tools don't do as good of a job of, is it lets you target specific geographic regions. So I want to know how many people are looking for a somatic therapist in Los Angeles
Mm-hmm.
City and Los Angeles County and California as a state. I want to be able to zoom in and out
Mm-hmm.
in my keyword research so that I can be as specific as possible and also find untapped opportunities. And so this keyword research tool, which I teach my students how to use in my courses and in my coaching, helps you really narrow in on where's my ideal client located, what words and phrases are they using to try to find a therapist just like me.
Right. Yeah. So what would be some of the key things you would type in maybe to find, just to begin to look?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what you do is you, just like when you're doing a scientific study, you got to start with a hypothesis, right? You can't just start studying something. You have to have an educated guess about something that you believe to be true. And then once you have that guess, you start to do some research to either validate it or invalidate it to, right, figure out what to do next. It's the same thing with keyword research. We have to start with a hypothesis. What do I think people are typing into Google to try to find me, right? Are people typing in therapy for men, Los Angeles? Okay. Right. Are they typing in holistic therapist near me? Okay. So we would start with what's called a seed key phrase. So you would type in what you think people are looking for in an area that they might be searching. And then what Mangools is going to do. So Mangools has a number of different features. One of their tools is a keyword research tool. So that's one that I use frequently. We would type that in. So let's just say trauma therapist, California, for example. We would type in trauma therapist, and then we would limit the keyword search to the state of California. We'd hit enter. Now, it's not just going to give us data about that one key phrase. It's also going to give us a bunch of related key phrases as well. So it might say things like EMDR therapist or trauma-informed therapist or therapist for trauma or trauma therapy approaches, right? It's going to show different variations of that key phrase. And so what we want to do is we want to find the best opportunity. We want to find something that has this perfect combination of high search volume, meaning that there are enough people looking for this thing that it's actually worth it to try to target that key phrase, but also something that has a low enough competition where we actually stand a chance to rank for it. Okay. If something has too low search volume, then you might be able to rank for it easily, but nobody's searching for it. So why try? Right. And if something has very high competition, I like to say we have to fight within our weight class, right? We're not going to be able to compete as a solo practitioner or even a small group practice. You're not going to be able to compete with the Psychology Today's, the Good Therapies, the Yelps of the world, right? They just have too big of an ad budget that we just can't compete. But we're not trying to compete with those big directories. All we have to do is land on that first page. And most of the time with low to medium competition key phrases, we'll be able to find opportunities. Now, there are so many times when I do keyword research, either for myself or for a student or with a student, and we find that for something like Trauma Therapist California, there will be a therapist on there who's not even in the state of California. Or they're a generalist and they don't say anything about trauma. Or maybe they mention trauma once on a bullet point in a huge list of other things that they, quote, specialize in, right? Some people do the A to Z thing on their website. They try to rank for everything, right? We know it doesn't work that way. We can really only be a specialist in so many things, right?
Right.
And so I try to find those opportunities where, hey, they're not even in the state. So let's work on a specialty page to help you outrank them. Or they're just listing the word once in this huge bullet list of all these things that they, quote, specialize in. Let's write a page very specific to trauma and you can easily outrank this website. So we start with that hypothesis. We do some keyword research. We find something where the key phrase has high search volume, low difficulty in terms of the competition. We look at the competition. Okay, what's currently ranking on the first page? What do I have a fighting chance to outrank? And then we do something called the skyscraper method. Okay. Have I intrigued you yet?
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
If you want to build the tallest building in New York City, you don't just start stacking bricks until you stop. You find the tallest building in New York City, and then you build one a little bit taller, right? A few feet taller. And now you've got the tallest building in New York City. It's the same thing when you're creating pages on your website. You don't need to build the most perfect page. You just have to build something that's a little bit better than what's already there. Google search has an imperative to provide the searcher with the best possible result. There's never a situation where you type something into Google and they say, sorry, we don't have good enough results for you, so we're just going to give you a blank page. Has it ever happened to you, Gordon?
Oh, no. Oh, no. You get something.
Exactly. You get
Yeah.
something. They give you the best of what they've got. Even if you type in trauma therapist California and there
Right.
aren't 10 good results, they're going to spit something out, right? They're going to give you the
Right.
best option.
Right.
Now, all we have to do as private practice practitioners is to give Google something a little bit better than what it has. And if you do that and you're consistent with your SEO, Google has no choice but to rank you higher. It's a meritocracy. Like Google, it doesn't have favoritism towards anybody.
Right.
The algorithm is specifically designed to provide the best result, and Google's really good at its job. So if you provide a better product, it's going to rank you higher.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's I think that's one of the best ways I've heard SEO ever explained. So, I mean, that is a brilliant thing. I know one of the other elements of SEO are getting other pages that are pointing to your website. So what are your strategies around getting backlinks?
Amazing. So I'm going to start with definitions because whenever I listen to a podcast and they're talking about things at a high level, it's exciting. But sometimes there's those things where it's like, ooh, talk to me like I'm a kindergartner, and when it's SEO, I try to talk to people like they're a kindergartner, not to belittle them, but just to make sure that they absolutely understand the basics before we move on to advanced. So let's just talk about what a backlink is. A backlink is any link on the internet that when you click on it, directs the user to your website. So for example, let's say you're giving a professional talk at an association in your area, and they put some landing page on their website saying, we've got Gordon Brewer coming in. He's going to talk to us about XYZ. Learn more about him at his website. Click here, right? And somebody clicks on that link. That is a backlink to your website, okay? Let's say you get featured somewhere, a local newspaper, a local magazine, and you write an article for them. And it's this beautiful article, and at the bottom, written by Gordon Brewer. Learn more about him at his website. Click here. Okay. These are examples of backlinks. Now, backlinks are like a vote. They're like another website voting for your website and saying, hey, this is a legitimate person. This is a legitimate practice. Websites don't just link to anybody. They link to people that they trust. It's like a thumbs up for your website. Another way I like to describe this is to say that backlinks are like the high school popularity contest of the internet. Do you remember in high school that if you sat at the cool kids table with the cool kids, you became a cool kid by association, right? It was this great social hierarchy that we had to deal with. Well, maybe not great social hierarchy, terrible social hierarchy that we had to deal with. The internet is the exact same way when it comes to backlinks. When high popularity, high relevancy pages link to you, you become high popularity and high relevancy by association. Now, therapists, my coaching clients and students are always like, this sounds great. I want to get these backlinks. How do I get them? Okay. I teach a strategy that helps therapists get featured in major media outlets like Huffington Post, Very Well Mind, Everyday Health, Live Strong, places like this, so that they are being quoted as those experts. If you're ever reading an article online like 7 ways to build stronger communication with your partner, right? 10 ways to help your kids, get along better as siblings, whatever the article is, these journalists, they're good at writing, but they can't be an expert at everything, right? They need to interview experts on whatever topic they're writing about so that they can weave in expert quotes, expert insights to back up the points that they're making in their article. Now, these articles, we know we have a 24/7 news cycle, right? There's constantly content being pumped out, articles being written, hundreds, thousands of articles being written a day. And every article needs a few experts to back up their opinions, right? So these are expert sources journalists need to have lots of expert sources in every topic that they write on, so that every time they're writing an article, they've got somebody that they can reach out to get expert quotes. And they've got tight deadlines. So really, they need you more than you need them. And so if you can build relationships with journalists where you become their go-to expert for quotes, you will get your website mentioned, right? If they say, for example, let's say I give a quote about how to set boundaries in your relationships, right? So, XYZ boundary tool, says Natalie Moore, owner of Space for Growth Therapy and Coaching, right? And my name gets linked to my website. And this is from Cosmopolitan Magazine, Self Magazine, Condé Nast, right? These are big publications. And they're linking to my website. So because I'm getting linked to my website, this is called a backlink, that's a strong indicator to Google, wow, this is an expert. This person knows what they're doing. Otherwise, these big publications would not be linking to her.
Right.
Backlinks are the number one indicator of relevancy and authority for your website. So you can be doing all the things right with SEO, but if you're not getting backlinks, you're missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah. There used to be, I guess it's still in existence, and I know I used it a little while. It's called Harrow, Help a Reporter Out, and it's a free website that you can go to. And if I remember correctly, Natalie, it's journalists looking for experts in different topics. And so you get an email every day when you sign up for it, and it lists what your expertise is in. And it might be something like just a phone interview. It might be just kind of a invitation to come on a daily TV show or something of those lines. But that is a great backlink, generator for people.
I've got an update for you, Gordon.
Okay.
So Haro, Help a Reporter Out, actually rebranded and changed their name and their user interface to something called Connectively. That was around for maybe a year or two. And then they actually shut it down.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't exist. This is recent. This is very recent.
Well, good. I'm glad we talked about this. Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about it. And actually, even before that shift happened, it used to be this best kept secret 10 years ago.
Yes.
I had maybe
I'm dating myself. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you bringing it up, because actually it's important to talk about the things that don't work anymore, because therapists might be listening to other podcasts or reading other articles that tell them to use Help a Reporter Out, and then they can't find Help a Reporter Out. We got to talk about this stuff, right?
Yes.
It's important. So Help a Reporter Out, back in the good old days when it worked really well, was a great source for getting connected with journalists and getting those backlinks. I actually used to track my success rate with it, and I had about an 80% success rate. What that means, for every 10 responses that I gave to journalists requesting quotes, I would get quoted in about 8 out of 10 of those opportunities. That's a huge success rate. So I used to teach to use Haro all the time. Now, something happened where it became very oversaturated with sources, right? It's one of those things where it's like, if it's got a lot of journalists and not that many sources, then you're in a good spot. But if it's so many sources and not as many journalists, you're getting crowded out. So my success rate plummeted. I also think that a lot of people started using ChatGPT for their responses and started getting things in really quickly, right? And maybe people hadn't quite caught on to that yet. So I noticed that my success rate with Haro plummeted. So I started so even before it changed to Connectively, and even before it officially shut down, I started looking for alternatives, because backlink strategy is a huge part of my SEO plan. And I needed to keep getting those backlinks to keep my website up and running and to keep generating referrals for me at the rate that I needed to. So I found an alternative. It's called Quoted. We'll include it in the show notes because it's spelled funny. Everything's spelled funny these days, right? They ran out of real words, so they had to start making words up and changing spellings on things. So we'll include that. I use Quoted. It's actually a much better platform than Haro ever was. Haro always kind of looked like a Craigslist type thing, right? It never looked that official with their emails. Whereas Quoted, it has options to create a detailed profile for yourself. You can have hashtags for all the topics that you're an expert in. It's searchable in both directions, meaning you can search for journalism opportunities to get quoted in, and also journalists can search for you and seek you out and say, hey, I need quotes on this article. Can you help me out? Right. So it's
Right.
kind of like a dating profile. Either person can start the flirting, right? It's kind of like that.
Yes.
And I've found that I have a particular strategy and pitch template and ways of following up and everything, ways of optimizing the profile that I teach my students. I find it's very successful. And it is a really great platform for not only finding those opportunities, but also nurturing the relationship with the journalist. One thing I didn't like about Haro was kind of like a wham bam, thank you ma'am situation where they put out their request, you provide them the quotes, you never hear from them ever again.
Right. Oh, right.
I had to track down my own articles to see if my quotes were getting used. I actually didn't think that Haro worked. And I was getting quoted, but I didn't know. And it wasn't until I learned how to track down those articles and realized, wait a second, I'm getting quoted. This is working. Whereas with quoted.com, the new platform, you actually have a messaging feature back and forth with the journalist where you can ask follow-up questions, or they can provide you with the link to the article. They can tell you that you were quoted. You can say, hey, thank you so much. Great article. Please keep me in mind for future topics, future articles. Please reach out. So I don't know about you, Gordon, but for me, I like to nurture those relationships because then I see it as this is a mutually beneficial relationship. I'm helping them out with their article. They're getting quotes and they're helping me out because I've got the backlink. And instead of having to pitch myself to somebody new every single time, I prefer to have those established relationships where they know they can trust me. They know that if I say, hey, I'm going to get you these quotes by the end of the week, they know that I'm going to get the quotes, right? If we schedule a phone interview, they trust that I'm going to show up to the interview and vice versa. So it really cultivates those relationships better.
Yeah, that's great. Spell how they, tell folks how they spell that.
QWOTED.com.
Okay. That's what I thought. When you mentioned that, I just did not know. And so you taught me something about Haro because that, like I said, didn't know that it had gone away. And so that's good. But, that is, another thing too is, and you might want to speak to this a little bit, is just responsiveness. When like you mentioned with quoted, is being able to get back to people quickly if they're contacting you. That's not necessarily SEO, but that is just a huge thing in terms of getting clients and getting referrals, is just responding quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll speak to them on a few levels. On one level, quoted actually tracks your responsiveness and your response speed and will post it on your profile. And so journalists who are considering reaching out to you for a quote can see what your responsiveness rate is. And if it's good, then they're more likely to reach out to you. But if your responsiveness rate is poor, they're not going to want to reach out to you because they're going to realize, by the time they get back to me, my deadline's already going to be passed, right?
Yeah.
So even from that perspective, it's important to be responsive. But more importantly, when you're building relationships with anybody, you need to be responsive. When you're building a relationship with a journalist for the first time, you need to be responsive. They're working on tight deadlines. They're only going to be interested in developing relationships with folks who, if they say they're going to get something in by a deadline, they actually do. So that's really important. I prefer to underpromise and overdeliver versus overpromise and underdeliver. So for example, I had a journalist who I actually did direct outreach with this journalist. I didn't find her through quoted. I reached out to her directly because I saw that she was publishing articles in Huffington Post, which is a great place to get quoted, by the way, because not only is it a high authority website, but they also syndicate their articles, meaning their articles show up on Yahoo and MSN and BuzzFeed and all these other places. So one backlink can easily turn into 10 backlinks. So that's an aside. So she works for Huffington Post, and she had, I believe it was 8 storylines or 10 storylines that she was working on at the same time that were all mental health and relationships related. And so she sent me an email and said, can you comment on any of these? And so part of me wanted to say, yes, I'll provide comments on all of them, right? But then I knew that I
Mm-hmm.
probably didn't have the bandwidth because I like to be
Right.
detailed in my responses. I want to give something that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told myself, you know what? Don't overpromise and then underdeliver. Just pick three. Pick three that you have the most expertise on and that you know you can get in by the deadline. And so I got her three. And then I also offered her, here's some experts in these other areas that I believe would be really great people for you to reach out to. And I gave some recommendations of colleagues who are specialists in that area. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave her hanging on all the other quotes.
Right.
And I think journalists really appreciate that human connection of,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you gave me what you could, and then you also provided some alternatives as well.
Right. Yeah. An image that just came to me is just thinking about SEO, particularly backlinks, in terms of doing a good job of connecting the dots so that you have lots of dots connected and lots of threads coming in. And I know we've got to be mindful of our time here, Natalie, but do you want to say a little bit about, if a person is getting started with a website, about the importance of the name of their website and also how that relates to SEO and also just about creating content for your website? At least in my experience, the more content you have on your website, the more credibility it's going to have and also going to help with SEO.
Amazing. So to answer your first question, are you referring to the URL, like the so-and-so.com or .net?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is actually an SEO factor that has also changed recently. So the funny thing about SEO is that it's always changing. It's a moving target. And so if you want to know about SEO, you really have to keep track or work with someone who stays on top of things who can update you. So the URL, it's the .com, right? If you are going to do some online shopping, you've got to type in Amazon.com, right? That's the URL. Every website has one. It's kind of like an address. If you want to go to an address, you've got to type it into your Waze or your Google app to get there. It's just the same thing. It's a digital address. It takes you to where you want to go. Okay, so every website has to have one. Now, the exact words on that URL used to be very important for SEO. So if you were a therapist in Los Angeles, some people would buy and the URL, when you buy it, it's called buying a domain name. I know there's a lot of work, there's a lot of gobbledygook, but anyway, just to move past that, it's called a domain name. Now, a lot of people thought, okay, I want to take advantage of this SEO opportunity. So if I'm a therapist in Los Angeles, I'm going to buy the domain name. Instead of making the domain name my name, like nataliemoore.com, I'm going to buy losangelestherapist.com, and that's going to help me rank for Los Angeles Therapist. Okay. This was a good short-term strategy at the time when Google's algorithm was prioritizing the exact keywords in the URL. What ended up happening was people found out that was a good strategy, and so they took advantage of it. And so people were buying all of these URLs. Therapist Los Angeles Therapist, Therapist LA Therapy. And then they were just creating these short-term landing pages, like a one-page ad basically for themselves. And then they were connecting all these websites together. Now that created a lot of spam on the internet, and Google doesn't like for the internet to be spammy. It wants to direct people to really helpful resources that are rich and robust. And so Google decided, the geniuses at Google who create the algorithm decided, okay, we need to deprioritize this from an SEO perspective because people are taking advantage. So actually, that's not a high ranking factor anymore. Sure, having a keyword or two doesn't hurt you in your URL. But what I tell people is much more important, because that's more of kind of like a short-term approach. It's a little myopic. We want to look bigger picture. It makes more sense to have your URL to be very branded to you or the name of your practice, right? So my practice name is Space for Growth. Now, spaceforgrowth.com unfortunately was taken, but I found a URL that's your Space for Growth. Okay, very close. We're going to take it. So you want your URL to be very branded to your practice. And if you can get the variations of that URL, like the .net, the .org, things with a dash in them, can be helpful to kind of own those digital properties on the internet. So that's the answer to question number one. Question number 2 about content. Yes, Google recently had something called the helpful content update to their algorithm. It's the biggest algorithm update they've had in a long time. And what it focuses on, it's well named. They want information on the internet, pages on the internet to be helpful. Makes sense, right? We go to the internet to solve a problem. We go to the internet because we have some goal in mind. We need those pages to help us. So what this means is instead of having a very bare bones website that just basically is like a business card, we don't want your website to be a digital business card anymore. That used to be good enough 10, 15 years ago when you were building a practice. It's not good enough anymore. Your website actually needs to help the person who's on it. They need to walk away with some kind of tidbit about, like if you're a couples therapist, you need to have blog posts on there that teach them about couples therapy. How do you know couples therapy is working? Can couples therapy make things worse? What types of couples therapy are most scientifically validated? What are 5 things you can walk away from reading this post that's going to help you right now, give you some quick wins in your relationship while you're waiting for that first consultation with the therapist, right? People have to feel that they're being helped, not only so that they build a relationship with you and feel that, you know what, this is the person who can help me reach my therapy goals, but also from an SEO perspective, so that you're not showing Google that you're an expert in couples counseling or whatever it is. Sorry, you're not telling Google that you're an expert in these things. You're really showing Google, hey, I'm an expert in these things, and look, I've got the content to back it up.
Right. Yeah. Oh, this is such great stuff, Natalie. And I know, again, we got to be mindful of our time. And I really appreciate you. This has just been, you've done, like I said, you've done such a great job of explaining SEO and how all this works. And I hope that the listeners are finding this really helpful. You've got some things, resources for people. Why don't you say some things about that?
Yes. So I know that SEO can feel overwhelming, and it can feel like you have to be this techie person to do it for your therapy practice. But I have developed a 6-week coaching program called the SEO Roadmap for Therapists. And it really is that. It's a roadmap. It tells you step by step what you need to do to rank your therapy website number 1 on Google for the key phrases that your ideal clients are already typing into Google to try to find a therapist just like you. And we've got a link that's going to be in the show notes that takes your listener directly to that link so that they can learn more about the course. It's a live course. So I know a lot of people they'll buy a digital course and they're so excited about it. And then life gets busy, right? And then it just collects dust and they never get back to it, which is why I love running live courses, because it also creates the accountability of, hey, there's going to be people there at this time. I need to show up. I need to be present. And it also gives an opportunity to ask questions in real time as they're coming up. Have you ever been in a digital course and questions come up and you're like, I'm confused. I need to know the answer to this now, right?
Right.
Because the information builds on itself. The way that I have the course structured is the information builds on itself. So I tell people, if you've got a question, ask me now. I don't want anyone to be confused until we move on to the next step. So I've got a maximum participant count of 10 so that we've got a small enough group where we can be supportive of each other, know each other's names, ask questions, get that feedback. And we even do some live feedback. If somebody says, hey, I'm really struggling with my website, I say, let's do a share screen. Show me your website. Let's go through it. What are you struggling with? Let's work through this now in real time. So I really want people to walk away from the course feeling like they've got not only the step-by-steps of how to do SEO, but also feeling supported and getting all those questions answered so there isn't any overwhelm. No needing to be a techie to get it done right.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And we've got a link set up you'll find here in the show notes, but it's practiceoftherapy.com/SEO roadmap. And that'll get you to the landing page to find out more about that course. And well, Natalie, thank you for being on the podcast. And I hope that we can get you back on here because there's so much more we can talk about. We didn't even hit on AI yet. So, I mean, that would be a whole other thing that's, I'm sure, is going to be a hot topic here in the future and how that affects SEO and all of that sort of thing. So hopefully we'll get you back.
Gordon.
Yes. Tell folks your website again so that they can find it.
Yourspaceforgrowth.com.
Okay. And again, we'll have links here in the show notes and the show summary. So thanks again, Natalie, for being on the podcast. Well, a big thanks to Natalie for joining me on the podcast. And I really, as you could tell, just really enjoyed chatting with Natalie about SEO. And I've done a lot of episodes around SEO, and it's really an important thing for everyone to be aware of, particularly in marketing your practice and having your website be the front door to your practice. Because truth is, as we all know, that's how people find us, is they do a Google search first, and having your SEO down is just a really important thing in having a website. And also, just as a reminder, be sure and check out the course that Natalie has got coming up. And again, the landing page for that is you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/SEO roadmap. And that'll get you to the landing page to find out about that live course that she's going to be doing. And also, before we go, be sure and check out TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice. And you can find out more about them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. And when you go there, if you'll be sure and use the promo code just Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. They're absolutely one of the best platforms out there, and they have really stepped up their game and now have the ability to use AI in writing your progress notes. Oh, really cool feature. I've been using a lot of that here lately. So be sure and check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. And again, as I said at the beginning, do take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And leave us a review. I love getting good feedback about the podcast, and also helps other people find it. And thanks for being with me on this journey. And we'll see you, or you can listen to us, or you'll hear from me next week on another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.